Hi, I'm Ben Cote, and this is Coffee Talk.
Welcome to another Coffee Talk. I'm Kim Perlak, Chair of the Guitar Department, and we're here as usual with Sheryl Bailey, Assistant Chair.
Hello, everybody.
And Ian Steed, our Senior Coordinator.
Coffee cheers.
And our special guest today is our coordinator, Ben Cote, who is an alum of the Berkeley Guitar Department. Hey, Ben.
Hi, how you doing?
It's good to see you. So, Ben, you're our first alum
I am
that
honored.
we're interviewing.
I am honored.
This is so great. So, to kick us off, what are you drinking? Do you drink coffee, Ben? What are you drinking?
Not really. Actually, I don't have anything with me this morning. Usually, I like just water, stay hydrated in the morning. I'm not really a huge coffee drinker, but depends how tired I am. I'm not really a connoisseur, but yeah.
That's great. That's great. Do you drink water throughout the day?
Yeah, I try to stay hydrated. I mean, I'm I try to be healthy about it.
Mhm.
I
Is
do
that
like my soda sometimes though, so.
is that something you did over the years because of the playing that you're doing? Like, did you find that it was necessary when you were playing shows, or?
Yeah. I mean, well, with my band, we've always played 3 to 4 hour shows, just because when you're the only band on the bill, you get to take home more money. So we'd have longer sets, so you gotta stay hydrated and gotta be ready to play for a long time. So
Did you learn that by bad experience, or did someone give you good advice? Like, did you dehydrate
it
yourself
was
while playing at any time?
yeah. I mean, it kind of over the years developed because I kind of slowly over the years became the lead singer in my band as well. So it was kind of from learning from watching others, and then from kind of having to take over. So, but yeah, it's better to be ready to play and not have anything else to worry about other than the music. So
You know, it's really funny because we started because we're called Coffee Talk, and this whole thing was born out of that idea that we, at least the four of us and other faculty friends and guests and stuff, would hang out by the coffee machine in the office. So we just thought, well, we'll naturally talk about coffee. And then it really turns out that everybody's routines with coffee, or what they drink every day, says a little bit of something about their musical personality or the practicality. And for you, it's really practicality. Like, you realize that you have to take care of yourself to be a rock player, to be a
oh,
professional rock musician.
and especially with the venues that my band plays at, we started out playing in dive bars around New England, so a lot of them, will offer you, you get free beer all night as well as getting paid. But when you have a few beers in you, it's your voice goes, and it's like, and you don't play as well. So it's a matter of you know, I'm a musician before I'm a rocker. So it's a matter of
Yeah,
being professional.
Sheryl, right off the bat, that's like defying a stereotype, that people have. People have this idea of what it is to be a rock player. And this is more the rock reality, right?
Yeah, I mean, you hear all the stories, of all the rock icons, back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, even 90s that, were messing around with a lot of stuff that I think, my generation kind of witnessed a lot of the kind of crashing and burning of a lot of them.
Mhm.
And it's like, I don't want to have to experience the negative parts of the genre. So it's just a matter of, it's always been about the music for me, and not anything other than that.
And part of preparing for that is taking care of yourself physically.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, but
Okay.
my band kind of has more of like an athletic approach to to an art, I guess, when it comes to that. Because especially, I mean, we've played some gigs, I mean, pre-COVID. We'd always have a couple shows. We play at Six Flags, New England, down in Agawam, and we'd get there. We'd start playing at noon, and then we'd have like 3 breaks, but we'd play from noon to 8 at night.
Mhm.
And the way that would work, it just whatever weekend we'd have open, to book there would always end up being like the hottest weekend of the summer. So it's like a marathon, when you play shows like that. And you gotta make sure to really take care of your body to make sure you can still perform at a high level.
Well, I think that's, I mean, talking about that with a myth, I mean, just with any style of musicians, people outside of our world have lots of myths and fantasies about what it's like to do shows like that, long shows, or be on the road. And the reality, and playing an instrument is an athletic event in many ways. Just the playing of the instrument to keep your body healthy, posture, and being hydrated and having a clear head, right? So you don't want to be drinking, but also you're traveling and you got to. Sometimes I feel just getting to the gig is an athletic event if you're carrying all your gear and if with a band, everybody's helping each other out with amps and drums and stuff like that. So and then you have to play a whole show like that. Like that's a long show, and then drive home, right? So you got to take care of yourself for that.
Well, the way I think of it is I'm a professional roadie. I'm getting paid to move all the amps and drums, and then getting to play is just a bonus.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. So Ben, there's a lot there that we're going to come back to. But one question we always ask in the very beginning is to talk about your first days at Berkeley. And you've had a couple different first days, at least 2 that I know of, but maybe more, because I know you were a student, then you're the coordinator of the guitar department. And you may have had some summer experiences too. So can you talk about like what one of your first days was like what you remember?
Sure. Well, I guess you can cut this out if it's too long of a story. But my first day as a student, I'll give a little backstory because that's kind of a big part of it. But I guess I'll talk about my audition first because when I auditioned to get into Berkeley, I grew up, being a rock musician. I was, learning a lot from playing in bands because I started playing guitar at 14, and then I started gigging kind of, semi-professionally when I was 15. I got a band going, and then we'd play wherever would let us, which really wasn't too many places because, the closer you get into Boston, the more strict places are if they serve alcohol or something. They don't want anyone underage. But I was playing a lot. I mean, I took lessons, and but I really didn't put in the time I probably should have to learn how to read music well. My teenage years. So when it came time to audition for Berkeley, I only applied to 2 colleges. I applied to Berkeley, and then Musicians Institute out in Hollywood. And I came in. I played Eruption by Van Halen for my audition for Berkeley, and I couldn't read any of the music or anything. But I at that point I developed a pretty good ear. So I had a good ear, and I knew theory. I unfortunately I didn't put the time in to actually be literate, with music. So I applied for the early action with Berkeley, but I didn't get in because of that. So I was kind of bummed out about it at the time, and I don't remember the exact wording, but it was some sort of situation along the line where Berkeley said, "Well, you didn't get into early action, but if one of the students that we did accept decides not to, then you can take their spot." So it was kind of like waiting in limbo for that. So yeah, I was kind of bummed out about that. My mom kept telling me, you're going to be like Tom Brady. Don't let it discourage you, because Tom Brady, he's the 199th draft pick. No one wanted him. And so I ended up getting into Berkeley. But at that point, I was 18, and the lights of Hollywood were kind of alluring to me. So I ended up deferring my acceptance for a year from Berkeley, and I went out to Musicians Institute. So I spent a semester out there, and there's some great teachers there. And LA was, it was a lot of fun. I mean, LA is kind of my home away from home now, but the school just was not a right fit for me. So I came back, and I ended up spending a semester at a community college for the spring semester, and then the following fall, started at Berkeley. And at that point, I kind of had a little more world experience from having to move out, because I mean I had no roots in California, I had no family there, so I was really 18 years old and completely on my own. But I came back to Berkeley, and it was kind of intimidating, because I mean Berkeley is, it's the biggest music school in the world. It's like this is the elite. So I went in there, and it was really intimidating. But I learned fast that you're never going to be the best player. So it's like I'm not going to try to compete, in that sense. But it's like I'm going to work. I'm going to outwork everyone, and I went in and kind of had to have that kind of underdog mentality, and you know, here I am.
That's great. And then you came back a couple times as you had launched your career with your band after you graduated. You came back to work with us. And what was that like? How did that feel when you came back?
It was great. I mean, the first time I came back was right after I graduated. I taught the summer guitar sessions in 2018,
That's right.
and that was scary for me, because I didn't sleep at all the night before. The first day of teaching, because I'm thinking, I don't know if I'm good enough to be to be teaching this, and it was funny because well, first, when I first got the gig to do that was my injury summer, because I used to always try to, I was playing like all these Van Halen, Randy Rhoads licks, but I was trying to look like Slash, so I wore my guitar really low. And when you're playing licks like that, I mean, you're physically, it's putting a lot of tension on your wrist, and it got to the point where I actually developed a cyst on it because of all the tension. And then it got to the point where not only was it painful, but it was physically pressing against one of the tendons, so I couldn't actually move. So my band had a lot of gigs that summer, and all I could really do was like pentatonic, like blues licks, because I couldn't stretch behind above 2 frets, and I ended up they had to remove it, and I was going to like physical therapy and everything for it. And this is all like leading up to that summer guitar sessions. I'm like, I got to make sure like I'm in shape to be ready for that. So I was able to be back to normal by the time guitar sessions came on, but I was still really nervous about having to teach. And the first day there, I had a Poison shirt on, the band Poison, and there was this one kid that was coming around the hall who looked at me and was like, Poison, and it made some sort of snide comment, and then he walked in down the hall. I'm thinking he's going to my room, like he's like, just the way my luck is, like he's going to be my one of my students. And sure enough, I walk in, and then as soon as I sit down at the teacher's chair, you see the look in his eyes just change, like, oh my god, he's my teacher. I looked at him and said, yeah. I said, you didn't know Poison was going to be your teacher today. And but it went really well, and it was a lot of fun. And then I came back and I taught again at the 2019 summer guitar sessions. And at that point, I already knew what to expect, as far as kind of leading it. And they were great. But the 2019 is when I came back to assist with the temporary coordinator position, and that was really great, because I had spent so much time struggling. I mean, after graduation, which I'm sure a lot of college graduates in general, not just musicians, know that feeling of kind of like, all right, you go from being senior in college and being top dog to now it's the real world. And I was working a lot. I was lucky enough to be able to teach guitar lessons at my old high school. We had a program set up that during the study hall, students could come in and take private guitar lessons. Then in between those students, I was working shifts at a grocery store in the produce department, and then gigging as well. So it was a lot. And then so as soon as I got the call that that you needed some temporary work at Berkeley, I remember calling up my manager at at the grocery store. I was like, I can't be in next week. I just got this opportunity at Berkeley, and my manager's a really good friend of mine. I've known him for years, and he's like, absolutely. He said, I'll find coverage for you. Go. He said, so yeah, and it was kind of felt like coming home. To come back to Berkeley was really really nice.
There's so many things in here to talk about that I think are really going to be important for the people listening. And so I want to touch on all of them. And because those of us here hanging out with you in this coffee hang had some role to play in the fact that you came back at different times. And I think it's really interesting because I think it might be hard to know when you're young, like when you're a student, if you're listening to this, like, what is it about what you're doing that makes an impression or that is kind of like a living application to do some of the things you want to do? And what kind of opportunities are present in jobs that you might not have necessarily right away thought would be valuable to your career in the big balance of it. And so the first thing I want to go back to is something you said about coming to Berkeley as a student, and that at first you were told, through admissions that relatively speaking, your skill set wasn't enough to get you right in the door right away. And then when you left and went to LA and then you came back and you worked on things and you kind of reset your expectations, you set up how you're going to improve, you set up your philosophy of how you're going to approach everything artistically and as a student, that process must have really helped you be prepared to teach guitar sessions, because in a way it must have set up your ability to see maybe some of the issues and problems that students who are younger than you were having, because you kind of had to manage and confront your own gaps in your knowledge and playing in a really practical way. Do you think that were there certain things where you felt like that experience made you more aware of problems students were having, made you a better teacher?
Absolutely. That's a really good point, because I mean, I can relate to, I think a wide variety of students now, because I was in, different situations. But even in my first semester, coming in, like I said, I was really intimidated, and I still wasn't really comfortable. I wasn't a strong, I wasn't a strong reader, never mind sight reader. And I ended up actually, it all kind of came to a head for me my first semester, because I withdrew from my ear training 1 class because I'd never heard of solfege before. So I'd never, really had to sing before when it comes to, sight singing, with the solfege syllables, conducting and all that. And I remember I was seeing the teacher at extra help every week, trying to, and finally get to the point where I had the conversation with the teacher saying, I can't keep up with, where this is going to go. What should we do? So the teacher and I said, well, it might be best to withdraw. But the teacher said, still audit the class. So I did that. So I ended up withdrawing. I still went to class every week after that, even though I wasn't technically part of it. And then after that, I got put in the second semester success program, which I guess if you, I'm not sure if it's still set up this way, but at the time it was, if you ended up withdrawing from one of the core music classes your first semester, you'd have to put in a special program. And at that point, it was kind of like the gauntlet had been thrown. And so I'm like, all right, I have a lot to prove now. And I had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder. It's like, all right, this semester has not gone the way I wanted to. I'm still looking like I'm failing. I really put as much work as I possibly could in. And, I ended up, graduating with a 3.98 GPA. I was a summa cum laude graduate. I took advantage of every opportunity I could. I commuted from home for half the time at Berkeley, just to save money. So I mean, I was waking up at 5:30 in the morning to take the train in, getting back at like 10:30 at night, and then still having to practice and study and all that. And it was just a matter of if I had to work like 3 times as hard as the person next to me to still get an A, it's like, then I'm going to do what I have to do to get the job done. It's just a matter of taking advantage of every opportunity and not really being discouraged by a certain situation, just saying, all right, this is the situation, this is what I need to do to get to the next level, and just do it and not dwell on what the issues are to get there. Yeah.
That's really a powerful thing for people to hear, I think. And what I wonder is there a way that you could put your finger on even just one thing? There's probably tons of things, but one thing that helps you do as a teacher? Like, how did that experience make you a better teacher? And how did it make you a better player?
I think it's really about, like I said, recognizing what the challenge is and then figuring out the most logical way to overcome it. And it's different for every student. It's different for every player. It's different for every situation. It's just a matter of looking at, all right, this is the challenge that I'm facing or that someone's facing right now, and this is what I want the outcome to be. What is required to reach that outcome, or at least get as close to the outcome that could result to another opportunity. And it's a matter of just recognizing what you're working with and what you can do with it.
So it's almost the
Yeah.
same answer. That's how it helped you as a teacher, and that's how it helped you as a player.
Yeah, and because I mean, when I was teaching the guitar sessions, regardless, and I made it clear at the beginning of the guitar sessions, I said, regardless of the skill set that every student has in here, for me, the way I was teaching, it was the contemporary rock ensemble. So the way I'm teaching it is I want to have everyone have as much playing time as you can, and have us sound as good as a unit as we can. And if that means maybe doing something that might feel boring, probably isn't the best term, but might feel kind of simple. It's better to do something simple, in a musical sense, but I guess in a real life sense too. It's better to do something well than try to overreach and not do it well. Yeah.
You know what I that story you just told about your ear training situation you withdrew, but you kept coming back to the class.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's incredible because I've had this with a student and they were struggling, and you get to that point and say, well, in terms of your grade or whatever, it's in your best interest to take a W, right? And so many students would just see that as failure and give up. But it's actually giving you a chance, right? And you really took that chance all the way and showed up. You weren't getting credit for the class, but you showed up just to be there and be part of the process, and then you came back, and that made you better. And also, I was struck by the story. I didn't know that about your hand injury, and so that's an interesting thing, because we do have a lot of students come and they're overuse injuries, or they're doing something like that with their technique. I know I'm sure we've all done that. When I was a student, I was doing something weird and it was actually causing me problems, and then you have to rethink about, oh, I got to approach this differently. I mean, and you work through it. I don't know, in terms of physical therapy, if you did different things. I'm sure you did everything you could, but you didn't let that stop you either. So, but I think that's puts you in a great place as an advisor when you have students that come in, that you see that situation, you can see it happening, and it's not, it is, you have to rethink that. Like, what you're doing, the path you're on is leading, your body's telling you this is not the right thing to do. So you need to listen to that and readjust what you're doing.
Right. And I mean, I'm always been, driven by the show must go on. Because, when I had that injury, like I said, my band still had a lot of gigs that summer. So, I mean, I would just wear a brace, and then it kind of goes back to the, here's the challenge, here's what I'm working with, what can I do to accomplish it? And like I said, I wasn't really doing a lot of flashy, fancy, Van Halen, Randy Rhoads, George Lynch licks. I had to stay mainly pentatonic because that's physically all I could reach. I could only do like 2 notes per string, and you just got to play the gigs. And then I think it was my 4th semester here. I ended up I got mono. I got sick, and at first the doctors just kept telling me it was the flu. You're fine. And it was during midterms week, so I had like 103 fever, and they thought it was mumps at one point, so they put me on antibiotics, which ended up giving me all these hives and all that, because I guess that's the reaction that antibiotics has with mono and all that. And but as soon as the doctors finally, after a while, said, "Oh, it's mono. You're not contagious as long as as long as you don't like spit on anyone." So I'm like, all right. So I was able to ace all my midterms, and then I still had like 4 gigs I had to play, and they were like 3-hour shows. And at that point, it was like, all right, like just let's not share a microphone, but let's do it. And that was probably one of the worst weeks of my life. But we got everything done, so didn't have to cancel any gigs. So yeah.
Okay,
That's probably an
that's
example of when to listen to your body when I didn't. But
well, yeah, but you also were very clear professionally about what you had to get done, no matter what. And then you had a good sense of yourself that you developed. Like, I'm going to push it to the extreme, but I know I can do this. I know I can get these responsibilities taken care of at school. I know I can get these gigs done. Here's what it takes physically. Here's where I'm at physically. It seems like you at that point had, because of the work you've done, developed an assessment of yourself, like an awareness.
yeah, like I said, that first semester really it all kind of came to a head with an ear training class, and after that, it was kind of like I figured out the formula that worked for me of assessing and how to work. And also, I mean, I had an advantage I think over a lot of other students coming into Berkeley was the fact that I grew up here in Massachusetts, so I already had a band. You know, by the time I started Berkeley, and because when I got back from LA, I started a new band. Which eventually became my band now, the Ben Cote band, and we were gigging a lot that spring and that summer before I started Berkeley. So I didn't take that advantage for granted. It's like, well, while I was going to class, I was also in the quote unquote real world. I'd be playing at least 1 or 2 shows a week every week, when I was a student here. And we'd also be signing up to play recitals. I'm curious if the concert office keeps a record of the number of recitals, because I swear if I didn't break the record, I probably came pretty close, because I played a recital every single semester. When they would send out the email for seniors, I'd sign up, and then I'd have my band members sign up too. So we'd play multiple recitals. So I've played the only venue I haven't played on campus is 939. But yeah, I'm curious what the record is for the number of recitals played by a student. But yeah, I just wanted to play, and I think that's kind of why I was a pro music major instead of a performance, because I felt like, I'm performing so much. I'm like, I want to be able to do everything. I want to be able to write my songs, produce them, market them, gig them. So that's why I went into pro music, and so that way I was taking songwriting classes, I was taking music business classes, I was taking marketing classes, I was taking all sorts of recording and production classes. I was trying to, I mean, this day and age, you got to be able to do some of everything with the way the entertainment industry is.
I want to add one layer in, and then I want to hear what you and Ian have to talk about in this conversation, because you're closer in time to your student days, and you're in similar situation in your career with the balance of jobs. The thing I just wanted to make sure to introduce kind of in this part of the conversation is that the guitar department, including Larry in that equation, hired you 3 different times, as a work study student, then as an interim coordinator, and then formally in your position now. And I want to just mention that and ask you what you remember about those 3 times, because I think it's also really instructive for other people who are thinking about this. And one is that the work study positions, people usually use them as kind of like almost like a scholarship, right? Like you're paying your bills, you're making sure that you can kind of find a job that maybe also lets you study or also lets you have some time for your own projects. And in the office, that kind of happens because everyone who works for us has some time where they're at the desk and you can bring your projects that you're working on. But then you also are interacting with faculty and interacting with students. And I remember the day you were hired, because I wasn't involved in that process. It was like the former coordinators, Rob and Julia, right, that interviewed you. And you could talk about that in a minute. But I remember walking in with Larry Bayonne, who was the chair at the time, and I was the assistant chair. And Larry had just been giving me a hard time that somehow I had some connection to everybody we ran into on the street. And we walked in and Julia said, "Oh, meet Ben. He's our new student worker." And I said, "Oh, hey, Ben, where are you from?" And you said, "Oh, you never know. It's this little town." And it turns out my mom is from the same town that you're from. And we just started talking, right? And I think it's really interesting because like Julia had said, "You're going to love this person. He's so proactive. He's super friendly. He's a great musician. He's really thoughtful." And the faculty instantly were like, "Who's this guy? You know, he's so on top of it. He must be." And everyone just kind of in their mind thought, well, if you can do that, like if you can be helpful, if you can be proactive, if you can just appear, you just appeared very centered and mature and professional. It gave everybody this sense, even before I think they may have gone and out of curiosity to hear your band, well, that must carry over into your work as a player. It must carry over into everything you're doing, right? And so you just became everybody's go-to person. You became like, "Oh, Ben is really responsible. Ben could do that. You know, if I need a staff member to come with me to something, why don't we send Ben? He's really great." And you just develop this reputation, I think, without really even knowing it, that you were a reliable professional person. And I don't think people really kind of grasp that all the time about the power of that. You just the way you did a work study job made us really remember you. And it also made us really curious to see if we were correct. Like this person who's so responsible and so professional in the office, I bet you his band is great. And I bet you they're on time and I bet you they're super professional. And that's why we started listening to you. Also, you were playing everywhere on campus, right? So we could literally go listen to you. But that was in the back of all of our minds. And I'm sorry, we hired you 4 times because we hired you for guitar sessions next. And that's what happened. I don't know if anyone else here remembers that summer, but we had a flood of rock guitar players and we had a faculty member who couldn't do it, and we were sitting around saying like, who's the best person? And we all said, what about Ben? Like, would Ben be available? Because of the way you interacted with other students, we were watching you help people with their projects. We just knew your demeanor and we knew your ability, and we knew that you would be really great. You would come to guitar sessions and ask a bunch of questions and learn how to teach that job. We also knew you were teaching, but it was really because of the way you were in the office that led us to hire you for sessions. Were you aware of all of that, or were you just kind of focused on doing your job?
This is the first time hearing about it. So thank you. I'm flattered. But yeah, no, I mean, I guess it's kind of like how I said, you know, everything I went through as a student helped me be a better teacher. You know, being, you know, the leader of my band, and kind of, you know, being, you know, quote unquote, I guess the boss, you know, made me learn how to be a better worker. Because now I know what I'm looking for in players that work for me. So it's like I know how to be a better employee for, you know, my bosses. And it was just a matter of, you know, learning from being on both sides of it and just trying to do the job to the best of my ability.
I think that's important too, because sometimes in those jobs and in all of our first positions, you're doing things that aren't music related. You know, you're talking to people, you're fixing the copy machine, you're moving amps, you know, but all of that actually, when you take it all together, it does impact your artistic life in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, as far as art goes, I mean, you get inspiration from the regular things, and that's, you know, kind of finding the balance of that. But I mean, I was just thrilled to be in the guitar department because I originally wanted to be in the guitar department to be a work study, and there wasn't any positions open. And then at that point, I had been working so much, you know, on ear training and all the core music classes that I got good enough where I was actually a core music tutor first, for my junior year here. I was working there, and then for the summers I was a work study for the guitar sessions week, and then it was the beginning of my 7th semester. The former coordinator here told me, you know, do you have a job on campus right now? Because we want to hire you. and it was a pay cut for me because the tutoring was more money. But I'm like, this is the guitar department. This is my department. I'm a guitar player. I'm like, so I ended up talking to my former manager in the core music department, saying, look, I got an offer to go in the guitar department. I'm going to take it. Thanks for everything. And he was awesome about it. He's like, yeah, absolutely. So, and I mean, little did I know that, doing that would lead to so many more opportunities.
Right, because it was the way you did that mattered. And I think, you were teaching guitar sessions, you were working as a musician, and then we had a crisis, and our coordinator was going to be out for a short time. We weren't sure what the length was. And I remember we were talking about it, and we thought, we just need someone for a short amount of time who really understands how the guitar department works, and will listen to students, and will be able to advise and understands the curriculum. And then we thought, wow, I wonder if Ben would do it. And in order to do it, ultimately you had to give up teaching at guitar sessions, which is really challenging. I think in the beginning you didn't, and then later you did. And the things I want you to talk about is that reality, like how you manage that. And then also, I just want people to know that you came in as a temporary person, and then that need became permanent. So when we ran a search for that position, you had to formally apply and go through the whole steps and everything. And the strength of what you brought to the position made it a very easy choice for us to say, like, oh yeah. So, and then at the same time, you're still in your band, you're still recording, you're making records, you're on the road. So, but in another way, you had to give up teaching at Berkeley in the summer program. So what did that trade-off feel like? Like what went through your mind in that time?
I mean, at the very beginning, it was kind of like I was kind of hesitant, like, ooh, like I really love the teaching gig, and to be honest, at first I'm like, would that make me appear as less of a musician, if I do that? But then, I mean, that was only really brief, because then the reality sets in, of you're an artist, but then you also have to survive. But what I'd wanted so much, leading up to that point, like I said, the first year after graduation, I was lucky enough to be teaching and gigging still. But in between students, I was working shifts at a grocery store, and I remember every shift there, I'd be thinking to myself, like, I just want a job in my field. I just want a job. And the fact that the opportunity came up, I mean, it was, like I said, a really, really brief moment of me saying, do I want to give up, guitar sessions? Then I was like, absolutely, I do. This opportunity to be working for the guitar department at, greatest music school in the world. I'm biased, but it is. It's like I'm not gonna say no to that opportunity. And the fact that it's a full-time job in my field, it kind of almost, I could breathe more as a musician. It's like, all right, it's like, what, I have a gig that I've been wanting for a long time now. Even though it's not teaching music, it's still a music gig. And it's like, it gave me breathing room with my band. It's like, all right, now I don't have to take every single gig. If I don't have to play a 4-hour gig and get only $100 for it or something like that. So I can be a little more selective now. I can be more artistic, rather than trying to just take every little thing to survive. It gave me an advantage, I guess, as a performer.
I want to turn it over to Ian, because I think what you said applies to all of us in this conversation, that we're always looking for balance between the job, parts of our job that are musical, but not the artistic parts. And we're trying to keep growing artistically as we keep learning how to do this job managing the guitar department together better and better and better. And Ian, I'm wondering what's on your mind right now with this, and where you want to take the conversation next.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, Ben, like I relate so hard to so many aspects of your story. Like it's kind of crazy. I mean, first of all, uh like really kind of struggling at Berkeley, but just like working really hard. Like I think a lot of people really relate to that. And it's like a theme that comes up so often that like, you know, I mean, you even said like, am I even going to try to be the best player? Like, in a way, it's like, at Berkeley, when people are playing so many different things, like, what even is the best player? But like, I remember when I first got hired, like, first of all, the trajectory into where I am is the exact same. I mean, like, first of all, I was working a completely different, like, when I was a student, at Berkeley, I was doing a landscaping job. Like I was working as a landscaper on Newberry Street, taking care of all the plants there. I would like I'd like see other students and faculty members, and I'd be like completely wet and covered in mud, and I'd have like like watering cans, and it'd be like, "Oh, hey, what's up?" Professor, great to see you. And I'm like, got like shears and like, and I took a pay cut too to get a work study job and in the guitar department, and it was like the coolest thing that ever happened to me, because it was like, you got in, you're a guitar player, it's like your home, and it was like, you know what, it was 100% worth it, and then the same thing, like I came back to do a temporary thing in guitar sessions. I don't know if y'all remember, but the other coordinator was going to be out just for guitar sessions, and I came back and I still had like long hair. I was like still kind of grimy hippie guy. But I came back and I worked just really temporarily in guitar sessions for like this thing that was just like doing temporary work. And I had been teaching, I had been doing gig work, like I'm not talking about music gigs. I mean like being a gig worker in addition to like playing at night. And it was just like really freaking hard, man. Like, you know, feels like you got like three jobs, you're hustling, and, on top of it, like, financially completely unstable. And, when this came around and it was like, I feel like now, like, in a way, in this job, I'm actually finally starting to have some level of like artistic development that I never had the freedom to do, because I never had the free time. It was just like, you know, wake up super early to do one job, go to the next job, try to play at night or like hit a jam session up, and it's just like crazy. And I feel like now, like in this in this time, I actually feel, now that I'm in my 30s, I'm figuring out what kind of music I like to play.
You know what's interesting? I just want to interject there is that we had the same conversation when we hired Ian for guitar sessions. It was like, we need somebody who knows this program, who's super creative and really organized, is just going to get everything in shape. So you think of yourself as, oh, as this like hippie, like bluegrass jazz player. And we, we were in the office like, get Ian, make him come, because you had like been after you had established yourself as just like the person that we want to work with. And it was not surprising at all that all of those qualities were present in your playing.
And the crazy thing is like, Kim, there's like a question that you sort of bring up and like a point that you make, that like you never know what's going to happen with one thing, right? And I remember when I was like a work study, and I'm like whatever, 25, and I got hired to do that job, and like the first thing I did was I was in like Rob's office, and he's showing me how to do things, and it's like it was just at the time like a minimum wage job that was temporary as a student. Yet like, like Ben, the way you're talking about, like the way you do one thing is the way that you do everything. And it's like I had this opportunity to talk to this um person who was in the position that I am now, and I had no idea. I didn't even have the like imagination to think, that like that would even ever lead to anything. But you just have to like show up and really pay attention and be present and do the hard work, and like you never know what like kind of things will uh sort of come your way if you really treat it like that, right?
I agree with that. I mean, I think you have to find the joy in everything and the art in everything. And what you both have said, which is something I know Cheryl agrees with me about, is all of these things that some people would say, oh, that's unrelated to what I do musically, is actually completely related, because it's your interpersonal skills, it's your ability to budget your time and your finances, it's your ability to organize things, it's your ability to like solve problems, it's your ability to manage your emotions around what you like. There is no like, there is no dislike anymore. There's what you need to get done so that you can do this, and what you can learn from one thing to take to another thing. And I think you have to come with a mindset. Some people call it a growth mindset, whatever you want to call it. But then it's like you develop this connection in all the parts of your life. And that's why I think both of you, and I think all four of us, have not become artistically stagnant just because there's other parts of our musical or teaching lives or administrative lives that need attention that we focus on professionally, because we bring everything into everything, and we're trying to find a way. It's not like it's never out of balance, but it's not that kind of fear that people have. Well, you do this job and then you never pick up a guitar again. I don't think when you're in this mindset that's real. I think it only enhances your playing and your art, and just becomes a different part of what you do. I mean, Ben, do you think that's been true for you so far?
Absolutely. And frankly, to be honest, saying that, I'm the coordinator of the guitar department at Berklee College of Music, I feel like that lends a lot to my playing, people, because not only it's like, well, you graduated there, it's like, wait, you worked there? I mean, I really think it kind of one hand washes the other, and it really shows the fans of my band that, all right, Berkeley thinks you're good enough to hire, then it's all it does is help.
Well, I think, what everybody's saying, or the reality of it is, all these skills that you develop as a musician or in the arts, the discipline, are really about problem solving. And really learning about your limitations and all these things. And so many parts of our job, it's not a rigid environment. Something crazy happens every day, so somebody comes in, it's always changing, and we have to flow with it. We can't have a rigid attitude of this is what we do. And I think you get that through learning about improvisation and listening about all kinds of different musics, and how do you prepare, how do you put your practice time together and all that. I mean, so that's what Kim's saying is true, like those. But that's always what I say is the value of an arts education anyway, is it really teaches you those disciplines of problem solving and being fluid, not being rigid. And we have so many things. We have students from all over the world, and we have big faculty of all styles, and something new comes every day. Something new, a new person comes in our door every day that we need to help them, guide them, or so I think that's the key to all of it,
I want to pick up on that point, because even though like in the forefront of all of our minds, like when we're deciding what gigs to take or what opportunities to accept, we're thinking sometimes about our, financial security, about sort of like these immediate needs. But that isn't really the driver when you take a job like this. There's something about the fact that each of you, Ben and Ian, and each of all the four of us, we had a certain amount of adversity that we met. And there's something about us that wants to help other people with that experience. And I think the fact that both of you you're now in a job where you're an advisor. Like a lot of your job is to advise people. And you had this experience where it was not easy for you to be a student in on any level. You had to work really hard. You had to have jobs outside of school and manage your time in that way. You both are very, you had a stylistic kind of thing that you wanted to do, but then you also really stretched yourselves and went into different musical influences as you came. So when students come to your offices, that's something you're all bringing to that job. And it seems like it's a part that really energizes you and motivates you both. Do you guys want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, my experience, I went through so many different situations, as a student, that I feel like, a lot of the problems that the students would come to this department for guidance and for assistance, it's like, all right, I've been there. Let me tell you what to do. It's really, it's it helps, the process, and it's not so much, maybe a student coming in and seeing someone that they think is just, a person of power telling them what to do. It's much more relatable. Not only are we alumni, but I think we're much more approachable, than say if we didn't have, experiences like that.
Yeah, definitely. Like I feel like, it's pretty, you know, easy, I think, for students to feel like in some way we're on their level, And I think that that's like a really good resource to sort of, and I also think, from our backgrounds, I think it's pretty helpful, And students come from all kinds of backgrounds, and I think that, some folks are lucky, like some folks really have like a lot of like say like family support, sort of financial support, and I think that that's like awesome. Like if I had those kind of resources, like I would take that, but it just so happens that I didn't, and I feel like it's it would be difficult. I think it would be more difficult in some ways if you had a lot more of a leg up, to advise all students. I think that there's something that I think that Ben was touching on that was really important. That was like, we have these conceptions about what a musician does or what arts education is. And, you know, I'm just like a creative butterfly in the wind. And then, I'm just like, let the inspiration take you. And then, all these things. But like so often these conceptions are just dead wrong. Like Ben is not like this party animal rock star. He's like, actually, I'm staying
Despite some
hydrated.
rumors.
Like I'm staying hydrated, and I'm like, it's like the way that you approach it is not this conception of like the this rock star that people have. And I think that like breaking some of these conceptions about what it means to play music, what it means to go to a music school, that I'm just going to be some creative, like, uh genius person who just floats around on these great ideas, and I'm just so talented. And it's like, actually, it's a lot of discipline, and it's a lot of hard work, and it's a lot of like improvising, like Sheryl was talking about.
So I'm going to ask now the question that Ian always asks because I want both of you to answer it. So, um, Ben, what is something that you feel like students should be asking you or asking us as a department team, maybe of leadership? What's something that they should be asking that they don't think to ask? Like, what's something that you wish maybe when you were a younger student that you had thought to ask this question for this advice?
That's a tough question to answer. I don't know. Because I mean, like I said, I came in already. I was a year older than everyone else because I taken a year to go to LA, so I already came in with a clear goal in mind. So it's kind of hard for me to answer that. Because I mean,
Maybe
I was
that
at
That's good though.
Yeah, because I was at the point. I guess maybe I can turn this around to answering it, because I was at the point where, you know, that year that I spent in between, going to LA and coming back and all that, I came in. I had a goal in mind. I knew what I wanted to accomplish, and I think that I wasn't afraid to ask questions, and that I would go to whatever source I could to get my answer. Like I was going to my ear training teacher every week, for extra help trying to get through that. And then, if I had an issue, I wasn't afraid to ask questions. I wasn't afraid to try to seek out the answers that weren't apparent to the school. So I guess that's the one thing that I guess that's not really quite answering the way the question was phrased, but just go search out what you need to search out. Go don't be afraid to ask for help, and just do what you need to do. Bill Belichick, do your job.
I love that. It is an answer to the question though, because when people come to you and they say they're having problems, maybe what they're not thinking to ask is, have I searched out answers by going to all these professors and telling them I need assistance and seeing what's available?
Right, because
and,
I'm sorry, but
no, because I just wanted to say that you saw that as your job as a student, basically. When you say do your job, that's kind of what you meant, right?
Right, because it's not high school anymore. It's not like you don't have to be here. You're here because you want to be here. I mean, that's why that's why I'm paying off all these student loans. And it's because you want to be here, and it's not like if you fail something, it's not like high school where well, for me anyway, in high school, it's like if you fail like a pre-calc test, it's not like, all right, well, that's just because I need to be learning this class. It's like, no, it's like, this is what you want to do with your life. If you can't do this this ear training, and you can't do this, you don't understand this mode, or what, anything like that, it's like you got to figure it out. And one of the best pieces of advice that I got here at Berkeley was my MAT teacher. My first semester said, it's like, yeah, she's like, she's like, everything that you're paying for here at Berkeley, she's like, you can learn in the real world. She's like, it might take you like 60 years to do it. You'll be at the end of your career by the time you figure it all out. She said, but you can go do that. She said, or you can stay here in 4 years and kind of, have all the answers to what you need to do as a musician. And that kind of stuck with me, and I think that's a big mindset to have coming here.
Who was that person? What's her name?
That's a good question.
We're gonna investigate that.
Yeah. I need to
shout out to the harmony department.
Yes.
We'll get back to everybody.
Allison Lissance.
Wonderful.
Professor Allison Lissance.
Ian, what's your answer today?
Well, I mean, I was gonna say the same thing. I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but I think that, like, my own experience was that, like, I really needed to ask for help, because every time I couldn't do something, every time I felt like I was behind or I didn't know something, my only answer to myself would just be to like internalize it and be like, you need to go practice, which is good. But if you don't have like some of the wherewithals to understand really what you're doing, you don't really know what you're practicing. And that, like, also, if you're having an issue with something, it might not be something that you realize. I mean, I guess that's why that question is such an important question. And a lot of people that we've had on here have said it's not a one size fits all, and I don't know. I remember having a lesson with the teacher, and I said, my X is really bad. I really need to work on X. And they looked at my playing and they were like, actually, it's your Y, like, actually, it's this other thing that it's like, it's not just your time. It's that, like, the vocabulary itself, you're hesitant on or something, and it's causing your time to be bad. But, my initial reaction would just be like, all right, I'm just going to do a lot of metronome stuff, and it's like, it might be another issue. So I guess the thing that students need to do is just really take advantage of the resources that are there, and you know.
Sheryl, what's on your mind after all of this as we're kind of coming to an end of the hour?
Well, yeah, I was just going to say about that topic, about the question. It is a great question to ask everybody. But my feeling about it, as always forever being a student of music and a teacher, is I try. It's sometimes people are afraid to ask a question, right? So, I mean, all of us here as giving advice or giving guidance is to create an environment where you feel safe to ask the question. And I think the important thing that students need to know about that is when you ask a question, you actually really help your teacher teach you better. Because we can't read your minds, you know? And so that question, for me as a teacher, always helps me direct the curriculum and the class. So I always say, when you ask those questions, you help yourself, you help your classmates, and you really help your teachers teach you. So ask as many questions as you can.
That is so true. I also think about, we had a speaker one time when I was in grad school. The former president, Bill Clinton, came to talk to grad students, and he said that a key for him had always been to think like, when you step out of the situation that you're in, whatever it is, the time you're in this job or this gig or this school time, have you really thought about what you want to take with you from every situation that will help you become the person that you are meant to be in the next situation? And if you're thinking of it that way, then everything that it doesn't seem you're going to take with you, you'll do your due diligence because that's your job. And everything else you can put your full self into, because it's not about that situation. It's about you. And it's about building who you are. Because he said, if you're an artist or if you're a public servant or if you're a teacher, who you are is what you have. He didn't say it like that. That's how I summarized it. But I thought, well, that is such a positive way of looking at things, because like Ben did and like Ian did and like Sheryl, you have done and I try to do, there can be something that you learn in every situation, even if the situation wasn't the most ideal. And you never know, it might be that situation that propels you into your next level of what you are meant to do, that you really feel like you're meant to do. So I think this has been probably one of the most important conversations we've had so far, everyone, you know. So I want to say thank you. Thank you, Ben. Do you have any final thoughts, Ben? Like advice that you have for students or things that you're thinking about that you see that we could develop together as a quartet in the department?
Social media. Social media is the key now. You know, I found even pre-COVID, it seems like, you know, it was all headed this way. I mean, it's at least for for my generation, it's pretty apparent that I think social media is more important than gigging now, as much as I hate to admit it. You know, you reach more people that way. I mean, now more than ever, you know, with the COVID world we're in. But yeah, so follow us on our social media, Berkeley Guitar Department.
Social media with substance.
Exactly. Quality.
Yeah. Ian, what's on your mind as we wrap up here?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a blast, you know, having been here and back and talking about like your story. It's good. I think it's good for students to hear it.
Sheryl, any last thoughts from you?
No, it was great. It was as always, a great conversation, and gives us lots of things to be inspired with, and makes us all want to go practice more and do our best all the time.
Yeah, so everybody, coffee cheers, go hydrate, do your job, and keep asking questions. And we'll see you next time on Coffee Talk. Thanks. Thanks, everyone.